Do you think politicians still care about loyal voters? Think again. A recent study shows that just 22% of voters stick with the same party over multiple elections. The days of politicians relying on loyal support are fading fast. Instead, they're focusing on swing voters, viral moments, and instant data. Shockingly, 38% of Americans now identify as independents, meaning fewer and fewer people are tied to one political party. Politicians today are obsessed with winning quick, not building trust. They're using social media to create buzz and micro-targeting small groups of voters. In fact, campaigns can now send personalized messages to as few as 50 people at a time using your data. Wild, right? In this video, we'll dive deep into why loyalty doesn't matter anymore. From the rise of swing voters to politicians flipping their policies overnight, you'll learn how political strategies have completely changed. Ready to find out why loyalty is dying? Let's get into it. Chapter 1: The Loyalty Myth. Why politicians are moving on. The idea that politicians depend on voter loyalty is outdated. Politicians have found a new way to win without it. Today, they're more focused on quick wins and short-term gains. Why? It's because voters are less predictable than before. According to Pew Research, 38% of voters now identify as independents rather than loyal to one party. This means politicians have no reason to rely solely on their traditional voter base. In fact, a study by the Brookings Institution found that only 22% of voters are loyal to a single party over multiple elections. Politicians see this shift and adapt to it. Instead of securing loyal voters, they go after the most likely swing voters. These voters can make or break an election, so loyalty takes a back seat. Politicians now focus on what works in the moment. They care more about hot topics and trending issues than long-term relationships. Author Jonathan Rauch, in his book Political Realism, notes that voters have become consumers of politics, not its producers. This means they're shopping for ideas, not sticking to one political brand. By focusing on what's hot right now, politicians can flip whole voter groups in a single election cycle. Gone are the days of carefully cultivating a loyal base over time. Instead, they adapt quickly to the changing winds, leaving loyalty behind. Chapter 2: The Rise of Swing Voters. A new power dynamic. Swing voters have always been important, but today they hold unprecedented power. According to research from 538, swing voters accounted for about 11% of the electorate in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. That 11% decided the election in key battleground states like Pennsylvania and Arizona. Politicians know this and adjust their strategies accordingly. Instead of investing in loyal voters, they now cater to these undecided groups. Swing voters often don't have strong party ties, which makes them flexible. Politicians use this flexibility to their advantage. They pitch policies tailored specifically to appeal to this shifting group, rather than trying to inspire long-term loyalty. A 2016 study from the American National Election Studies, ANES, shows that swing voters are less likely to vote based on ideology and more likely to vote based on a candidate's personal traits. Politicians understand this and spend more time crafting their public personas than ever before. In the past, loyalty was rewarded, and swing voters were just an afterthought. But today, politicians are putting these voters front and center in their campaigns. This shift has changed how elections are run. It's no longer about building a consistent base. Now, it's about winning over this volatile group, one election at a time. Chapter 3: Micro-targeting Madness. How data outranks devotion. In the age of big data, politicians are using micro-targeting to replace loyalty. Micro-targeting is a strategy where campaigns use data analytics to target very specific groups of voters. Instead of relying on broad appeals to loyal voters, they focus on small, highly targeted segments. According to the Victory Lab by Sasha Issenberg, campaigns using micro-targeting can deliver personalized messages to as few as 50 people at a time. Data plays a huge role here. Politicians use voter databases, social media, and even online shopping habits to create detailed profiles of voters. They then send these voters tailored ads or messages that speak directly to their interests. One famous example is how Barack Obama's 2012 campaign used Facebook data to reach undecided voters with customized ads. Research from the Data and Society Research Institute found that campaigns using micro-targeting increased voter turnout by up to 3% in key areas. That may not sound like much, but in swing states, those numbers can decide an election. This hyper-focus on small groups means loyalty is even less important. Politicians can win without building a large, dedicated base. They just need the right data to target voters effectively. Micro-targeting allows politicians to sidestep loyalty altogether. Instead of inspiring trust or long-term commitment, they focus on meeting voters where they are right now. It's a fast, efficient strategy that works, but it leaves no room for loyalty. Chapter 4: Social Media over Substance. Instant gratification politics. Social media has changed the political game completely. Politicians used to spend years building loyal followings, but now, viral moments matter more. A well-timed tweet or trending video can shift public opinion instantly. A Pew Research Center study shows that 72% of adults in the US get their news from social media platforms. That's where politicians are putting their energy now. Instead of spending time cultivating voter loyalty through consistent policies, politicians focus on creating content that will go viral. It's all about short-term impact. The faster something trends, the better. This shift to clickable politics has led to less focus on substance and more emphasis on spectacle. Quick, emotional appeals drive engagement, and engagement drives votes. Platforms like Twitter and TikTok have shortened the attention span of political discourse. Politicians now prefer the 280-character limit, where they can be punchy and controversial. According to The Influentials, a book by Ed Keller and John Berry, the opinions of a small, connected group can sway broader public opinion. Social media influencers and viral content are those new opinion drivers. Loyalty just doesn't pack the same punch anymore. Even candidates who seem serious have adapted to the game. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, effectively uses social media to engage young voters, often bypassing traditional media entirely. Her Instagram live sessions are less about policy and more about personality, yet they're highly effective in rallying support. In this digital age, instant gratification matters more than lasting loyalty. Chapter 5: Policy Chameleons. When ideology becomes flexible, politicians today are becoming policy chameleons. They change positions quickly, based on public opinion trends rather than sticking to long-held beliefs. This strategy works because voters have shorter memories, and social media outrage fades fast. A Gallup poll from 2021 showed that only 16% of Americans believe politicians stick to their positions out of principle. Most voters accept that flip-flopping is part of the game. Why would politicians shift their policies so easily? It's because loyalty is no longer the key to winning. In 2020, Joe Biden shifted his stance on several key issues, such as Medicare for all and climate change, to appeal to younger, more progressive voters. He wasn't worried about losing loyal older voters, he was focused on winning over a new group. This kind of flexibility can be seen in both major U.S. political parties. Republicans, too, have adjusted their platforms to reflect the changing views of their base. For example, some prominent Republicans have moved away from traditional free market policies in favor of protectionism, following the rise of populist sentiment. The old lines between party platforms are blurring. In his book The Righteous Mind, Jonathan Haidt talks about how people make moral decisions based on emotion first and logic second. Politicians have realized this and have started to frame their policies around emotional appeals that resonate in the moment. As a result, loyalty to a particular ideology has become less important than staying in tune with public emotion. Tap the subscribe button and be a part of our growing community.